Hi everyone, and welcome to Let's Have a Chat, where we highlight and talk to some successful leaders within the corporate industry. Today we have a distinguished guest with us, and that is Mr. Rudolf Elias. He is the Senior Advisor of Ernst Young Caribbean and the former Managing Director of Staatsolie. Mr. Elias, welcome and thank you for your time and doing this interview with us.
No, thank you for inviting me.
It is such an honor and a pleasure to have you here with us. Mr. Elias, could you tell me a little bit about yourself?
I was born in Holland, but my father was Surinamese. My mother is Dutch. We came to Suriname when I was 4 years old, so I grew up in Suriname. After that, I went to Eindhoven and I studied at the University of Technology. I finished my master's beginning of 1983. It was very difficult at that time to come back to Suriname. So I started working for an international contractor, Balas Nidam, and for them I did projects. And in the end, I came from Balas Nidam to Suriname, and there I did the bridges project, both the Bosbrug and the bridge over the Kopanama River. After that, I went back to the Netherlands and I became the general manager of the Caribbean area and South America for Balas Nidam. But after 4 years, I had enough and I came back to Suriname and started working for BHP Billiton. I had to leave to Australia in order to do projects for BHP Billiton, and then Mark Waldek passed by and said, Rudolf, why don't you go back and travel again? Why don't you stay here and start working for Staatsolie? We have so many nice projects. And I did. So I became the Director of Business Development for Staatsolie. On a certain moment, I also moved to the refinery because we wanted to build a new refinery at Staatsolie, and I did that project as a project director. First, we were in Rome with 35 people from Staatsolie to do the engineering together with the Italian company. I mean, that was one of the nice points of my career. And most probably you will ask me, what is the nicest thing that in your career? That was actually it was already in December 2019, but the world know it on the 7th of January 2020 when we had our first discovery. I mean, that was such a relief, because we worked so hard to find oil. So that was, I think, one of the nicest moments that I had in my career. 1 year later, or 1.5 years later, I retired and started working for Ernst Young as a senior advisor for the Caribbean area, in order to make them understand how the oil business works and why it works like the way it works, and how it works in the Caribbean, what you should look at, and things like that. But in the meantime, my heart was also with our biodiversity. I already started with that 2 years before we found the first oil, and I said, look, if we found this oil and we have all this oil wealth, let's try to protect our biodiversity, our rainforest, while all the other natural resources like oil and gas and bauxite and gold are finite. So on a certain moment, they will stop, while our biodiversity and rainforest will never stop. And in the beginning, we can earn money with it, to get it, because we will get carbon credits. But later on, we will also be able to earn it with biodiversity credits. And most probably there will even be a time when we will get biodiversity credits plus carbon credits for our rainforest. Because a lot of people think that the world will be net zero in 2050, but I do not believe that at all. So I believe it will be a long time before we are net zero. So that means that the carbon credits will be sold for a very long time in the world in order to compensate for the carbons that other companies are producing. And that is why the one of the nice things that I mean, I am yelling this already for 7 years. Suriname needs to have a vision, a roadmap, or what I call a broad social discussion between the VSB and the unions and the government, or the political parties, because it should raise above the government, on what do we want as a country. You know, that's what I call the roadmap. What do we actually want as a country? Do we want to have whole of Suriname to become agriculture? Do we want to have 50-50? But also, I mean, what do we want to do with the oil money? Do we want to put it in a sovereign fund? Or do we want to spend it all? Do we want to have 1 million immigrants?
Yes.
Or do we say, no, we want to keep Suriname for the Surinamese and we want to have a slow growth?
Yes.
Having a roadmap or a vision is one of the most important things that must happen before the oil money starts flowing in. And we should not do this by default. What Suriname always do, yeah, we will see what happens. Or we will see what happens. No.
We should come to action when it comes
If we
to this.
do not have a roadmap, there will be chaos.
Yes.
And the nicest example is Guyana. I don't want to say that Guyana is already chaos, but you already feel that the Dutch disease. That means that everything becomes very expensive. People that work for the oil industry or people that supply the oil industry, they can afford that because their prices go up. But people who are in agriculture or people who are in the mining business, they cannot afford the high prices that are now developing Guyana. So that means that all the other industries will die. And when the oil is up, you have nothing. So it is extremely important for us all, that means for the business society, for the unions, for the politicians, for everybody, that we start coming together and that we say, what do we want with our country?
Mr. Elias, you spoke about biodiversity that is close to your heart, Surinamese biodiversity. Could you tell me a little bit about some projects you did within the biodiversity?
One of the things that I did together with John Hoedschaller, John is already in it for 14 years, but on a certain moment, I am a running friend of John Hoedschaller because in my free time, I do run marathons. And we were running one day and I told him my dream that I would love to take part of the oil wealth and use it to protect our rainforest. And then he started explaining to me that Suriname is already busy for 10 years to put up programs in order to protect the forest. So at that time, I started working for CI. I was just retired. I started working for CI, and together we tried to get programs in place in order to see what will happen with carbon credits, how we could sell them, what is the market, how does it look like, what do we have to do. And then, by pure coincidence, COP26 happened in 2021, October 2021. COP26, that is the United Nations for Climate Change of the Paris Agreement of 2050, they changed Article 6 in such a way that countries that have a high forest and low deforestation, Suriname is one of them, that are saving carbon credits in a program, but Suriname already is carbon negative. And we are carbon negative somewhere between 15 and 20 million tons on an annual basis. So if you purely take Article 6 from the UN, Suriname can start claiming 50 million tons of carbon credits.
Yes.
So it's very simple, and I try to explain that to very enthusiastic to everybody, but somehow the government doesn't pick it up. And if you talk about money, you talk about maybe $200, $300 million on an annual basis. Suriname needs that money, especially now. I mean, if we take that money, we can start strengthening our institutes.
Yeah.
If we start strengthening our institutes, we will have a better institutions when we get the oil money. But also the carbon credits, the money that we will get from that will start raising. And people are predicting that in 2030, which is only 6 years from today, carbon credits could be worth more than $100 per ton.
Wow.
So that means that from the 15 million tons of carbon credits that we have, we might get $1.5 billion as an income.
That's a lot.
We can do a lot with $1.5 billion.
We can earn a lot internationally from our carbon credits.
Yes.
So I hope that this can be a wake-up call for not only the government but also the whole society in Suriname, that carbon credits can be earned for Suriname. And I'm sure that with awareness about this project or about the carbon credits, that Suriname can go further and also gain financially.
Yes, and it is very important that especially the young people understand that. Because it is not only the carbon credits, what I explained in the beginning. It is the biodiversity hotspot that we are.
Yes.
That is so unique that 30 years, 50 years from today, I mean, that will be worth most probably as much as the oil, because all people are thinking now that we will have one development of oil. I see multiple developments coming.
Mr. Elias, to wrap this interview up, I would like to ask you, do you have a message for leadership or a motivational quote to share with us?
Yes, I want to, not only for leaders, but I can give you and that is still, I think, one of the nicest quotes that I saw wherever I worked, and that's the Stars only quote. Just keep believing in your own abilities, because sometimes we forget that. Sometimes we think that everything that comes from abroad is better, but believe, honestly believe in your own abilities, and that you will see that you will grow a lot faster as when you don't.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mr. Elias. It has been an honor and a pleasure to have you here with us at Let's Have a Chat. Thank you so much for your insight.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And good luck with the program.
Thank you so much. That is a very insightful chat with Mr. Rudolf Elias from Ernst Young Caribbean. Ladies and gentlemen, stay tuned for the next guest in Let's Have a Chat.